Welcome back to April May Codes. I'm your host, April May, and today I'm going to expand on the player class that I created in the last video. I started by pasting in the rest of my player's sprites. So here in Assets in Player, instead of just base.png, we've got the axe.png, the pickaxe, the shovel, watering, and our base, which has our movement and everything. So I can go and close these. Now, I've got the self.base tile, so I'm going to go ahead and add the other ones as well. So I'll just copy this, paste it 4 times, and we want self.axe tiles, pickaxe tiles, shovel tiles, and water tiles. And that is called watering.png, 64 by 64, and that is 9 rows and 8 balls. Shovel is also 9 rows and 8 balls. 64 and 64. Shovel.png. Pickaxe is pickaxe.png. And that is 128 by 128. And that is 5 and 5. And 5 and 5 for the axe. 128 by 128. And that is axe.png. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and create my animations directory. This is going to hold all the animations for each status. It gets pretty long, so I'm going to copy and paste it in, then I'll go over it. So give me just a moment to copy it. And I'll paste that here. We want it to be above the image because we need to access it for the image. Alright, let me scroll up so you can see what that looks like. So each key, it's a dictionary, so each key is a status. So we've got up idle, down idle, left and right idle, up, down, left, and right for our movement, sowing seeds, the player death, the up axe, left axe, down axe, right axe, pickaxe, hoe, and water. I've got the death animations in there. I'm not sure what I'll be using those for yet, but those are the keys. The values are lists. You'll see they're in the square brackets here of images. So if you've got an individual sprite image for each frame of the animation, you'd want to do pygame.image.load and then your path to your image for each item in the list. If you watched my last video, you know I'm using a tilesheet class that returns an image. So my list consists of the tilesheet.getTile and then the x and y coordinates. This took me a minute to go through each tile sheet and pick out the ones that I need. But if you look, for example, we'll look at up idle. So up idle is self.basetiles.getTile, x is 10 and y is 4. So if we look at base.png, look at 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my first, right here, is my first up image, so that's the up idle. The rest of these are what I use for the up movement. Then here's left idle and the left movement, down idle and the down movement, and right idle and the right movement. So I had to go through and find the x and y coordinates for each of these that I wanted to use and put them into my dictionary. So that took a while, but I got it done. And I did that same thing for the axe file, the shovel file, the watering file. Got all the x and y coordinates for each one. One other thing I'm going to point out, if you watched my project introduction video, you'll have noticed that the axe animation in it is off. It makes my character smaller. That's because the images aren't cropped properly. So if you look at base.png, each of these is 64 by 64, and the player is centered in there, and there's not a whole lot of space between each frame. For the axe and the pickaxe, there's quite a bit of space between each frame. They're 128 by 128, but there's a lot of white space. So that's why when I use the axe animation makes the character smaller. Eventually, I'm going to get the images cropped right and resized properly, but for now, I'm not too worried about it. The animations show up, and that's the primary goal for now. So, moving on. Now we'll need a frame index and a status so we can access the right animation from our animations dictionary. Let me minimize this so we're not taking up so much space. We'll go ahead and do self.frameIndex is equal to 0 because we're going to start with the first frame. And self.status, you can use whatever status you want. I'm going to start with down idle. So we're facing down and we're not doing anything. And then we'll need to update the starting image because instead of the random image from the tile sheet that I chose, I want to set it to self.animations, animations dictionary. The key is self.status, and the frame is self.frameIndex. So I'll just take that frame index in the self.status key of the self.animations dictionary. But I do need to scale it up. So this will be the first argument. The second argument will be the size, which will be 80, 80. And that is going to be in pygame.transform.scale. You'll notice in the animations, I started to do it for each image. I went ahead and scaled it up. Pygame.transform.scale for each image here, but the animations list is very long and I didn't want to go back and do it for each one. So when I call the image, before we blit it on the screen, I go ahead and do pygame.transform.scale. So this will update the image after we get it from the animations dictionary instead of updating it in the animations dictionary. All right, now I'm going to add some code that I don't fully understand. I'm sure as I continue developing this game, I'll need to learn more about it. So once I do, I'll probably be able to explain it more. But in the meantime, if you're wanting to understand why this code does what it does, I recommend checking out ClearCode's channel. His Stardew Valley inspired game is the base for a lot of my code, and his tiled and camera tutorials helped me a lot with creating my map and getting the camera right. He's also got an intro to Pygame tutorial that I haven't watched yet, but it probably goes over the movement in there. I'll link to his channel in the description. So what we want to do is self.direction is equal to pygame.math.vector2 with the parentheses. And then self.pause is equal to pygame.math.vector2, and the argument is going to be self.rect.center. And self.speed is equal to 200. Now we'll make an animate function. This also comes from ClearCode. That's going to be def animate, take self and delta time. We'll just call it dt. Self.frameIndex plus equals 4 times delta time. That is an F, not a 4. There we go. If self.frameIndex is greater than or equal to the length of self.animations self.status. So if it's outside the length of our list, if it's not in our list, Then we'll set the frame index back to 0. And then we'll do self.image is equal to Pygame. No. Yes, Pygame.transform.scale. We need to scale up the image. And then self.animations, self.status, and then int self.frameIndex. We make this an int because when we multiply 4 by delta time and add that to our frame index, that's going to give us a float. It's not going to be a whole number. So we need to change it to a whole number here, and that will give us the next frame index that we can call on self.status and self.animations. All right, so now we have a problem. Right now we're multiplying 4 by delta time and adding that to the frame index, but what that's going to do is add 0 to the frame index because right now delta time is just set to 0. So to fix this, we need to go ahead and start our clock by going into game.py and into our game loop. At the very top, we're going to do self.gamemanager.dt is equal to self.gamemanager.clock.tick with the parentheses divided by 1000. All right, back to player.py. We're going to create a few more functions to handle the movement, but first we're going to create some timers. This is from clear code as well. Actually, all of these functions and most of the player classes. I promise I'll get to my original code very soon, but these tutorials are what got me started. So first I need a timer class, which I'm actually going to put in support.py, so we'll move over there. We'll create a class timer, which doesn't inherit from anything. In it, we'll take self, a duration, and a function we'll call func is equal to none. Self.duration is equal to duration. Self.func is equal to func. Self.startTime is equal to 0 for now. And self.active is equal to false by default. Now we need an activate function, which just takes self, and that will do self.active is equal to true, and self.startTime is equal to pygame.time.getTicks. Then a deactivate function, which just takes self, that sets self.active to false, and self.startTime back to 0. And finally, we need an update function, which takes self, and that's it. So current time is equal to pygame.time.getTicks. If the current time minus the start time, self.startTime, is greater than or equal to self.duration, that means our duration is up, so we'll check if there's a function. If self.func and self.startTime is not equal to 0, we'll call the function self.func. And then we need the parentheses because we're going to call it. And then self.deactivate. So we'll deactivate the timer once it's run out. So when we activate it, we set the start time to a value equal to pygame.time.getTicks. When we update it, we set the current time to pygame.time.getTicks. So say the start time is 1:57 and the current time is 1:60. each time we update, the current time is going up. Once the current time minus the start time is greater than the duration, that means our timer is up. So we'll execute the function if there is one, and then deactivate the timer. That's my brief, probably unclear explanation of it anyway. Clear Code has a much more detailed, easier to understand one in the Stardew Valley tutorial and probably in some of his other videos as well, so definitely check out his channel if you want to understand that more. So now we've got our timers defined, let's go ahead and create some. Back in player.py, self.timers will be a dictionary. Put that up here. Self.timers is equal to a dictionary. And we're going to be tool switch, tool use, seed use, and seed switch. And each value will be a timer. So tool use will be a timer. The duration is 350, and the function is self.use tool, which we haven't made yet. So let's go ahead and make that real quick. Use tool, and we'll just pass. And we'll do the same for use seed. We'll just pass. And let's import timer. All right. And then seed use will be a timer. Duration is 350. That's going to call self.use seed. All right. And then tool switch. Actually, since I'm going to have the ability to switch through multiple things in the hotbar, I'm going to take out the tool switch and the seed switch and just make one timer called switch item. Switch item. And that will be a timer with no function, and the duration will be 200. I'll change that back in the future if I need to, but I think this should be fine. All right, let's go ahead and add a self.tools list. This is just a list of strings, so it'll be hoe, axe, water, and pickaxe. And you're probably thinking, what about fishing? Look, I hate fishing. I hated playing it, and I hated trying to figure out how to implement it, so it's just not going to be a part of my game. So these are the tools. Now, the tool index is going to be equal to 0, so we're just starting with the hoe. So self.selected tool is equal to self.tools, and then self.tool index. Seeds we aren't going to worry about for now. So on to the functions. Let's go down under animate. We'll make an input function to check what keyboard input the player's given, and this will take self and actions. First, we're going to check that our seed use and tool use timers aren't active, because if you're using a seed or using a tool, we don't want you to be able to move. So, if self.timers tool use, let's do if not self.timers tool use active, and not self.timers seed use active. So if those timers are not active, we're going to check for the actions. If actions move up, self.status is equal to up, and self.direction.y is equal to -1. Elif actions move down, self.status is equal to down, and self.direction.y is equal to +1. else, self dot direction dot y is equal to 0. The direction dot y has to do with the math dot vector2 thing that I don't fully understand, but it works. And we'll do the same thing for the horizontal movement. So if actions, move left, self dot status is equal to left, self dot direction is equal to -1. And that should be direction dot x is equal to -1. Elif actions move right, self dot status is equal to right, self dot direction dot x is equal to +1. Else self dot direction dot x is equal to 0. And that's all we'll do for the input for now. Now to do a get status function, def get status, we'll take self. If self dot direction dot magnitude is equal to 0, self dot status is equal to, so if we're not moving, I don't know how that works, but that determines if we're moving or not. So if we're not moving, self dot status is equal to self dot status dot split at the underscore. We'll take the first value plus underscore idle. And then we'll do if self dot timers tool use dot active. So if we're using a tool, then self dot status is equal to self dot status dot split at the underscore. Take the first value plus an underscore plus self dot selected tool. Remember, selected tool is a string from the tools list based on the tool index. Now our move function takes self and delta time if self dot direction dot magnitude is greater than 0, self dot direction equals self dot direction dot normalize. Not totally sure what this does. Then we'll handle our horizontal movement. So self dot pause dot x plus equals self dot direction dot x times self dot speed times delta time. And then self dot rect dot center x is equal to round because that returns a float and we need an int, self dot pause dot x. And then handle vertical movement, we're going to do the same thing. Why do I have a line here? Typo. It's a class attribute. Why is it saying there's a typo? I'm just going to ignore that. Self dot pause dot y plus equals self dot direction dot y times speed times delta time. And that should be self.speed. And then we'll do self.rect.centerY is equal to round self.pause.x. Whoops, that should be pause.y. All right, we're almost ready to handle our update function. We just need one more thing, which is the update timers function. So we'll put that here. Def update timers, just take self, and that is going to be for timer in self.timers.values. So just the timers, not the keys. We're going to do timer.update. All right, now for our player update function, which, if you remember, is called in farm.py's update function when we call allsprites.update, because the player is part of the group allsprites. So we'll do update, which will just take self and delta time. First, we'll call self.input, which needs actions, so it's going to be self.game.gameManager.actions. Then we'll call self.getStatus, self.updateTimers, self.move, which needs delta time, and finally self.animate, which needs delta time. And that should be enough to get the player moving. Let's see if it works. I forgot a colon somewhere. Line 178, right here. There we go. And I did something else wrong. Key error down idle. It's down underscore idle, isn't it? Let's check in my animations. Yep, it's all underscore. So our starting status, we want to be down underscore idle. And we're missing something else too. Function missing required argument size. And that is in line 152. I forgot to put the size in when I resized the image. Pygame.transform.scale. So we've got the image, and then we just need the size, which is 80 by 80. And I've got one more error in here. I misspelled status. So in actions move right, that should be self.status equals right. And now when we run it, we can move left, we can move right, and you see the walking animation, move up, and move down. Looks good. All right, in the next video, I'll work on handling the tool use and probably work on the overlay so we can get the tools in the hotbar and switch tools. So I will see you next time, and thanks for watching.